All right, guys, we are back for take 2 of our daily live feed here. Thanks for sticking with us. Please let us know if you can hear us and you can see us. It looks a little better on our end, but we want to make sure that you guys can hear us, you can see us. Okay, we think we're doing better here. So we have Stacy, one of our mammal keepers, in the exhibit right now feeding our golden lion tamarins, and we are also going to witness the feeding of our anteater, our southern tamandua. And Mitch from Education is here to tell us a little bit more about these. We started before, but give it to us again, Mitch.
Well, as I mentioned, this is kind of a South America exhibit. So we have the golden lion tamarins. They're from the Atlantic coast of Brazil on the coastal rainforest. We have the southern tamandua, which occurs down in southern Brazil. These are great animals for the children's zoo because they're highly active. They're moving around all the time. So Stacy's feeding them right now, and just like you and I and our kids, we want to have a balanced diet, okay? So we don't spend the whole day eating pizza or whatever, or we're going to sit around and get pretty large. So we have the same thing with all of our animals here. So we give them a nice balanced diet. And with the golden lion tamarins, they're kind of omnivorous, so they eat a variety of like plant and animal proteins. So they'll eat insects, they'll eat eggs, eat small reptiles, but they're primarily fruit eaters. And here we feed them a chow, kind of similar to what you would feed your dog, a chow that has all the balanced minerals and vitamins and everything. We feed them things like eggs, which is high in protein. We have actually another balanced canned diet that we give them. So very kind of scientific in the way we approach our diets here. Same thing with the tamandua. They're primarily insect eaters, kind of like an anteater. And in the wild, they would eat things like termites and ants. Sometimes they'll occasionally eat fruit, but we don't really feed them, so we don't like dump a pile of ants in there and termites. Basically, they eat kind of what we call an insectivore chow. That's their primary food item, but they also get an occasional like a piece of fruit like strawberries and other fruit like that.
Very cool. And our tamandua, you were telling us, is a female.
Correct.
About 1.5 years old.
Yes.
What else can you tell us about her?
She came from the San Antonio Zoo here recently. She's the only tamandua that we have on our collection right now. I think they're really interesting animals. Their shape is really quite unusual. They walk kind of out. If you watch them, they are arboreal, so they do spend a lot of time up in the trees. But they kind of walk on the outside of their feet, so they kind of have a goofy gait to them. If you watch them walk. They are very strong in their forepaws. They have that because they can tear open logs in order to get insects. And one of their most unusual features is they have an extremely long and sticky tongue. So their tongue is about 16 inches long when it's fully extended, so that they can reach into crevices, et cetera, and get insects out.
Wow.
So they're really, really well adapted to feeding on the plethora of ants and termites that you would find in a tropical rainforest.
Very neat. And does she have a name?
Rousey is her name, yes.
All right.
Yep.
And our 2 golden lion tamarins. Talk to us about them.
Yeah, they actually are highly endangered species, unfortunately in their wild habitat because of destruction of the rainforest, the logging, etc. Has done a lot of harm to their habitat along the Atlantic coast, the coastal rainforest down in Brazil. Zoos have had a captive breeding program with these animals for several years and have actually released them back into the wild. But as you can see, they're really highly active. We have a male and a female here. Paisley is the female, Luca is our male. And they are cavity nesters, and so way up on top of the exhibit, we have boxes for them. And in the rainforest, they would actually seek out cavities to spend the night. What's really interesting about golden lion tamarins is that the dads have a really strong time just raising young. So they spend a lot of time raising the young along with the females, which is really unusual. Usually the adult males really don't spend much time with raising the infants.
That is really interesting. And Benny asks, how long do they live?
These guys in captivity will live about 15 years.
All
Yeah.
right.
And so, yeah, and actually these two, the female is 4 years old, the male is 5 years old. Yeah.
And what about tamanduas?
About the same, yeah.
Okay. And Kimmy wants to know, are the tamanduas related to anteaters?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And I'm seeing some paper and other things here in the exhibit. What types of enrichment do we give these guys?
Well, a lot of the enrichment, actually we use their primary food items for enrichment. So for instance, like it would be mealworms, it would be crickets, and sometimes that you'll put like an enrichment device in there where they actually have to work in order to get their meal. And that's no different than what they would do in the wild. So that's enriching for them mentally, physically. It gets them active, it gets them thinking on how to solve problems. So those are the things that we want to do. We want to try to keep them as close to kind of natural behaviors as we can. And so placing these enrichments, and sometimes the exhibits can look kind of sloppy with paper and things like that in it, but it's really important to their well-being. And so we do that on a frequent basis.
And Stacy was telling us before we went on the air today a little about the love of avocado that is happening in this exhibit. Can you recap that for us?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So the tamandua gets avocado twice a week. That's part of its regular diet. The marmosets, or the tamarins, excuse me, that's not really part of their regular diet, but they really like it. And so we saw earlier that the tamandua was going towards its diet, and the tamarins were kind of upset about that, but they do like to steal the avocado from the tamandua. Yeah, kind of like stealing the food off your brother's plate. You know, you see that piece of pizza that you want, so a little bit of rivalry inside the exhibit.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Now, these animals, would they be found in the same area in the wild?
No, they wouldn't. Well, no, they wouldn't. So the tamandua is more in southern Brazil, okay, Uruguay, northern Argentina. They would be found in the same country, but not overlapping in the same habitat, where the tamarins would be found, like I said, on the coastal rainforest of Brazil.
Okay. And Lucy wants to know, how many of the tamarins do we have, and do we plan on getting more?
We only have the one. We have the one female right now. Now, we have had more in the past, but we only have the female. A lot of times the coming and going of animals here at the zoo are on the recommendation of like a breeding program, or what they call an SSP, maybe a species survival plan. So we may be getting a male in the future in order to breed them, in order then to obviously have the chance of having some offspring from them. But right now, I'm not aware of any plans to do that.
And are the tamarins a breeding pair?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are a breeding pair. So hopefully we'll see some offspring from them sometime in the near future.
All right. And Alex asks, besides the avocado incident, do they get along?
Yeah, I mean, they get along. Well, we wouldn't actually, I mean, think about it. We probably wouldn't have them on exhibit together if they did not get along well. There are occasions where there might be an individual animal that does not get along well. And so we would monitor that and make sure that there's no injuries or anything. If there were animals not getting along, we would remove them and put them into a different exhibit situation. So yeah, they get along well.
And the tamarins, we're hearing them call. Talk to us about those noises.
Well, they have those noises. Obviously, if you're in a rainforest, you can't see each other very well because it's so dense. So those calls are really important for them to be able to make their location known to, let's say, the rest of the group. Those calls, though they all sound the same to us, they're all different in some way, and they all have maybe a different meaning. One would be kind of a warning call that there's predators nearby. Another one would just be a signal, maybe male to female during breeding season. So though they sound all the same to us, they have specific meanings to the actual tamarins.
And do tamanduas make any noises?
No, they're pretty quiet creatures. Yeah, they're pretty quiet creatures.
And Sue asks, do the tamarins have prehensile tails?
Yes, they do. They have prehensile tails. Actually, if you were to look on the inside of the tail, it's actually bare on the inside and along the tip. And they use that to balance themselves. I just read a study not too long ago where they spend about 65% of their time up in the trees. That prehensile tail is really important for them to keep their balance as they're moving along on the branches.
Very cool. And Milo asks, why do they jump so fast and high?
Well, that's just the nature of them being in their habitat. Okay, just like you and I, when we're moving along the ground, we're very accustomed to moving, darting around quickly. And they are very much at home in the canopy, up in the treetops. So it's very natural for them to do that. Darting around, escaping predators, basically keeping potential predators kind of off guard with their quick movements. That's all part of their natural behavior.
Very cool. And we also have another species of animal in nature's neighborhood that we wanted to talk about today too. And I know you have a real passion for these animals. Talk to us about these.
Yeah, I do. Well, these are leafcutter ants, and these are found in the New World tropics, so down in South America, Central America, and they're really fascinating animals to me. They're eusocial animals, so they actually live in a social system where you have a queen that lays all the eggs, and then you have literally hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of females that are all the workers, and then you have occasional males that are winged, and then they emerge, and then they'll mate with virgin queens and start a whole new colony that way. But they're fascinating creatures.
And talk to us about this exhibit, because it actually goes along the entire length of this wall.
Yeah, it does. So in the wild, these ants go long distances to forage for their favorite leaves, all right? I've even seen them in the tropics where they actually forage flowers. And they'll travel maybe half a mile or longer with these leaves or these flowers. Yeah, I saw them one time. They were all of these just rows of thousands upon thousands of ants carrying ginger flowers back to their nest.
Now, that had to look really cool.
Oh, it is really cool. Yeah, it's just really, and the flowers are really teeny, and it was just like a row of flowers just kind of like walking by. Now, they don't eat the leaves and they don't eat the flowers, but what they do is they use those as compost. So back in the nest, and we'll go back there in a few minutes, they chew it up, they put a little drop of poop on it, and then they raise fungus on it. And the fungus is what they eat. So just like fungus that we all eat mushrooms. Most of us eat mushrooms. Mm-hmm. That's the fruiting body of the fungus. Most of the fungus is underground. So they eat the fruiting bodies of that, and that's what sustains them. And so if you were to dig up a leafcutter ant colony, you would see literally hundreds of pounds of fungus that they've raised underground.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so they're pretty remarkable animals.
They really are, and we can see them cutting and taking leaves all the way back along the length of this wall.
Yep.
Taking it back to the colony, and talk to us about how far they're traveling here.
Well, this is here in the exhibit. It's about 100 feet. So they're in clear air plastic acrylic tubing. We laid that out when we first opened the exhibit. So we place the leaves that they eat on the other side of this acrylic tube. They have to go get the leaves, and then they have to bring it back to the nesting area. So the nesting area, we have boxes here where they actually grow the fungus. There is a caste of leafcutter ant. They're the little teeniest of ants. They're called minims. And they are in there, and the only thing they do is care for the fungus. So they're like fungus farmers. All right, so they keep all the other kinds of fungus out because there's always other types of foreign fungus that want to come in. They pick all of that stuff off. They keep it clean. They make sure that everything's going well. And then there's other castes that are, their primary job is to actually cut and transport the leaves. And then there's yet another caste, they're called majors, that have huge heads. And that big head is all full of muscle for powering the jaws. And they can inflict a really painful bite. And so they protect the nest against, like that tamandua that we saw. They would protect the nest against them.
Okay. And then there's one queen.
There is one queen. And the one queen, you're never going to see her unless you were to dig around in the nest. And we don't do that. We don't generally disturb her. And her only job is to lay eggs. And over her lifetime, she would lay several million eggs. So she just stays put. She basically lives inside the fungus. And, she has plenty to eat. They have other ants tending her. And she gets along just fine. Pretty remarkably, they live up to 25 years.
Wow.
So they do live a long time.
That is so cool. And Denver asks, how can you tell the different types of ants apart?
Usually it's just simply size. So like some of these mid-sized ones, they're like the general workers. They're the ones that are carrying the leaves. They're the ones who are doing the majority of the work. Sometimes you'll actually see smaller ants actually riding the leaves back and forth. And those little teeny ants actually protect the ants carrying the leaves from things called parasitoids. They're wasps that would attack and lay eggs on the ant that's carrying the leaf. Oh. So all of these things have different jobs. They even have they actually even have a dump where they dump all of the dead fungus, all the dead ants. And the ants that are in there are never allowed to leave because they might transport disease and bacteria around the colony. So that's where they stay. That's where they are.
Quite a little community happening down there.
Yep.
And let's see, Kimmy Sue asks, are they stronger than other ants, leafcutter ants? Are they stronger?
You know what? I don't know if they're any stronger. I mean, ants in general can lift a lot proportionally than, let's say, a human would. So like I've seen them lift some really large rocks, move some really large branches, things that are many times their weight. But I've never seen any information about whether they're stronger than any other ant species.
And Alex wants to know, how long has the zoo had leafcutter ants?
Well, we got this particular colony that we're looking at right now back in 2007, just before Nature's Neighborhood opened. So this is the same colony that we got in 2007.
Wow, all right. And Sue asks, do you have to do much to support the colony, or are they self-sustaining? Well,
we have to provide them the leaves. It gets a little challenging in the wintertime because, as we all know, there's not a lot of stuff that's green in Ohio in midwinter. And so we have to actually have browse shipped in from the state of Oregon during the wintertime. So they really like members of the rose family, which include like apple, raspberry, blackberry. So they ship in the blackberry browse for us in the wintertime. During the summer, we can cut things around here like mulberry, euonymus. They really like that stuff. And so we have no problem in the summer.
Okay. And Michelle wants to know, how long do the worker ants live?
Well, worker ants certainly don't live anywhere close to the 25 years. They would probably live at the most maybe a couple of months. So they wear themselves out pretty quick.
And how many ants do you think we have in here?
Oh, we have probably, I'd say, somewhere in the neighborhood of between a half a million and a million ants in here.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And I've actually seen them in the wild where one single ant colony would cover, let's say, the size of what would be your backyard.
Wow.
Okay, so there would be literally hundreds of millions of ants in a colony that size.
Unbelievable. And how much browse will they go through in a day?
Well, I mean, if we put like, I'm going to just use like branches. So if we put like maybe 15 branches in the morning and in the afternoon, like they put, I had the keepers put some in this morning around 9:30, and they'll have that all stripped by noon today.
Oh my God.
So yeah, they can strip it out pretty quick.
They are really interesting little creatures.
They are. What's kind of funny is that we have more animals here than we have in the other entire zoo combined, if you think about it.
True statement.
Yeah, yeah.
True statement.
Yeah.
And as you guys can see, he was saying they can carry pieces much larger than they are. And it's a continuous motion.
It is. They're constantly bringing in new browse. And you know what's kind of funny? Sometimes they'll use it and sometimes they won't. It's kind of like they're kind of fussy on a particular type of leaf that they want to use. So sometimes they'll bring it back and they won't use it. Like here, what they'll do is they'll bring it back, they'll pile it up in our little kind of central mixing area, and then other ants will come down and take those up actually to the individual nest boxes that we have.
And how many different nest boxes do we have?
The last time I counted, we had like 24. Wow. Okay, and we actually limit it because we don't want to get more ants where it's going to be impossible for us to provide food for them, especially during the winter time.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for teaching us
great.
about
Yeah,
these
sure.
guys.
Kim, can you go back to your announcements before we end?
Yep, absolutely. Corey just said, let's go back through our morning announcements. For those of you who just tuned in to our second take here, we had some technical difficulties this morning, so we wanted to make sure to catch you guys up to date. Unfortunately, we do still remain closed. We were hoping to get some guidance from the governor today. I've been receiving some text messages while on live with you guys. It seems that he has issued some recommendations, so we will let you guys know as soon as we know more information. We have a plan. We'll get it out to you guys. We appreciate you tuning in, and don't forget about those meals on the go. You can get those ordered for tonight. You just have to get your orders in by 1 o'clock at toledozoo.org/mealsonthego. And our kids club is underway, but there's still a chance for you to sign up, toledozoo.org/kidsclub. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. As we said, as soon as we know more, we will let you guys know more. So stay tuned to our social, our website, and these live feeds for more information. Thanks for joining us today in Nature's Neighborhood, and be sure you check out the leafcutter ants, the golden lion tamarins, and the southern samoyed the next time you're at the zoo. Thanks, guys.